team. We'll start with an opening statement by Coach.
Yeah, so this year we're pretty excited. We have a really young team. It's about, as you guys probably know, 55, 60 people on the team right now. And we brought in a few internationals this year, as well as about 10 or 12 domestic recruits. We graduated a lot of the leadership last year, so this year we get sort of rebuild it the way that we want. The past 4 years we've built up a pretty good group that last year I think we had our best finish in the Varsity 8. The Varsity 8's the top event. Every event after that scores fewer points, but this year we think we'll go back to the full team focus where we'll probably we're looking at third or fourth in ACC with our current standings. Third or fourth in ACC, using a lot of points from the lower boats. Perie's a coxswain, which is one of the race car drivers that pilot the boats. So we thought we'd bring her in because that's a little bit different perspective, maybe.
I'll open it up for questions.
Derek, when you have such a turnover, just talk about the challenges that it presents, kind of early in a season when you've got a totally different kind of squad.
Yeah, I think it's cool because whenever you have a lot of leadership, it takes the group, and you have the top third is they're always with it, and they want to do what the coaches want. And then you have the bottom third that's trying to figure out what they want to do, and you have the middle third that sort of, if you can get the leadership to pull them up, that they go with them. That's what we've had the past couple of years. This year it's like they're all the middle group, so it's sort of like we can decide what we want. If we want the goals to change from, making NCAAs to being top 10 every year, this is the time to do it because they're all pretty young and they've been recruited under the same model, so we're not worried about that. Talent-wise, they're really, really fast, so we're not worried about that either. So it allows us to take what we've learned about instilling culture and getting goal setting from this group, and we can sort of get a do-over. And not that it was bad before, we've gotten faster every year, but with this new youth sort of, we had about 7 girls redshirt last year, so our sophomore classes, most of them also didn't experience last year. So we have 25 girls that didn't really compete at ACCs last year for us. So that's where the major youth comes from. So they also don't know that we've been 5th every year the past few years, so they can kind of sort of start over and get what we want out of them.
Perie, just talk a little bit about what it is you do as a coxswain and kind of take us through from when you get into the boat till after you get out of the boat.
As a coxswain, we kind of run the practices or the races. You're coordinating the rowers, making sure that they're rowing in sync and making sure that the race plan is what it needs to be to have our best performance. We're listening to the coaches and trying to relay messages. It's hard to kind of get all 8 girls on the same page, especially when they're working at such an intense level, so trying to really tap into their heads there. And steering. We steer. Yeah.
Coach, scheduling has to be kind of difficult. There's not as many events and that kind of thing. Do you kind of stick to the same schedule each year? Do you want to, or do you change it up, and how does that work?
Yeah, I think that what's good for us is that everybody wants to race us. So the top programs want to race us because it's respectable no matter what happens. Lower teams want to race us because they want a shot. So we're always ready to race, and I think that helps. We don't really care if we're flooded, it doesn't matter. Like when we race programs in April, we will have been on the water maybe 5 to 7 times, and they will have been on the water 60. But we're still going to hold our own. And I think that makes us attractive to book. I don't think there's any race we couldn't get in at this point. A little bit of it is from a cost standpoint. Regionally, we have a lot of girls from Florida, so we like to see their families get to watch some racing. So we moved a race to Florida. Last year was in California. Probably go up to Washington soon because we have 5 or 6 from Seattle now. So I try to hit up their areas once in their career, hopefully. Doesn't hurt to be racing, a few of the top 5 teams, each of those. The Clemson Invite we race that's a really big race to get in for selection for NCAAs. So that's when we try to race. Probably the 3rd biggest race in the country is our race that we host in Oak Ridge. So we keep that big and pretty fruitful. So the main thing we want to do is we want to represent the ACC well before the ACC championships. Past couple of years, we go to California, we get hammered by Cal and USC and some other California schools, Stanford. And then we go to the ACCs, and it's like, that's what we're bringing on our resume. So we're trying to tone that down a little bit for a couple of years. It's not like the competition is going to be much easier, but it's going to be closer, so we don't have to deal with the time zones and that sort of thing.
Coach, Virginia is kind of the standard of rowing, the best in the ACC, also one of the best in the nation. What role models do you take out of them? Do you take tips and hints from them to try to improve your program?
Yeah, so I was actually just writing Kevin Sauer, their coach, a thank you note for all the mentoring he's done. It's funny that you say that. I was just literally writing that in my car. I think that Kevin Sauer, the Virginia coach, he's done a really good job to keep a culture of grittiness and entitlement is easy. It's easy to get caught up in all the stuff we get, and he's done a really good job of keeping them grounded. And I think that we're built very similar. He and I both came from club programs and just he actually played football, I think, in college. But he's like a monster. He's like 6'5" or something. So we look to them for as a good indicator. If we can hold our own with them, which we did in the fall, then we know we're on pace to do pretty well. There's been years that we've had other teams in the ACC squeeze between us and Virginia at the fall races. This year we were able to get back up there. That means that we have a pretty good shot as a team to be on their tails, but they don't really waver too much. They're going to be 3rd or 8th in the NCAAs every year. So if we can hold up with them, we'd be pretty happy.
What kind of your expectation in as Coach was talking about the youth or the amount of turnover as a senior? How do you kind of get everybody in rowing? How do you make leadership work?
There's a lot of different ways. The thing with the young girls, it is kind of cool that we've seen so many leadership roles open up and everybody's kind of gunning for them. It makes the whole team kind of push a lot harder because girls are kind of going through and like, why not me? Why can't I be in the top boats? Or why can't I lead this team in this area? Or different roles that have been held by the older girls that are now gone and open. It's cool to see that everybody's just looking to find themselves there. Getting really gritty and working for it, but I'm excited to see where we end up.
Coach, you mentioned the international. Is that something? Is there more now than you've had before, and is it something that you kind of will move towards a little more?
Yeah, I think when I was an assistant coach, I did a lot of recruiting in my first couple of years as head coach internationally. We had a lot of Kiwis at one time. Then we had a little bit of a lull. We wanted to see how well we can do domestically. We've pretty much figured out where our sweet spot is domestically. It's still the top 3 or 4 or 5 athletes in the country are always going to go to IBs, it seems. So like we're up against it academically with some of the Pac-12, Big Ten, and even ACC schools. We're doing pretty well against the ACC, which is really cool. So internationally, we were going and getting girls that were pretty good for their nation. Now the girls we're getting are the top in the world. So we are getting, I think we probably have about 5 or 6 future Olympians. 2020, there's probably 2. And I think there's 3 or 4 right now that could make 2024 pretty for sure. These are all internationals who do that. Domestically, there's a couple homegrown girls. There's a novice girl. That means that she just picked it up about 6 months ago now, and she's probably the best novice, maybe one of the best novices in the country. Certainly the best novice we've ever had. And she just is, from a physique standpoint and physiology, she's just got it going on, and she's got the right attitude. So I think she could be a lot of fun. Her name's Anna Kaiser. So we'll see. We'll see how she does. But interestingly about the coxswains, we can't coach them from the shore. We can't yell an improvement that we see. We can't say, change this, change that. So that all has to be programmed in their heads. And so like how the race plan plays out, I mean, there's a lot of environmental conditions they deal with. And if the wind changes or it shifts a little bit, sort of like a sailor, they have to make all of those adjustments. At the same time, all 8 of them have to be rowing sort of like, it's like a golf swing. Like it does take a lot of technique involved, so they have to make these adjustments. And then, believe it or not, the athletes do get in their head sometimes, and they have to clean that up too. So it's pretty cool. I think it's one of the hardest jobs in sports, truthfully, because you're like a race car driver, but you have to be perceived as one of the tribe. So it's a it's a tough spot to be, so we're really lucky to have a great group.
It's a balance.
Yeah.
It's a balance.
Talk about some of the challenges of not having a home race day water within 5 hours of you.
Yeah. Oh, well, Oak Ridge is 3.5, so we do all right. Yeah. So, I mean, it'd be nice to have a place where everybody could come and see it close by. If you had that, it also means you have a place you could be practicing dependably. I mean, that's part of the problem is we could build a course somewhere, like at Taylorsville or Lake Hardy in Indiana, but the winds are bad enough in that time of year that it could blow you off the water. So it's a challenge. We have to, so here's the thing with like in everybody's lives, like whenever these challenges, you can either just be beat down by them or you can get excited by them. So we get excited by it. We think like, look, if you are the grittiest girl you know, come row for us because you might be on the rowing machines for all of April and you're gonna have to deal with it. And people, I mean, we lose recruits because we don't have better rowing water, but we probably should have lost them anyway. They should probably have gone somewhere else. We got the recruits we want, and they're resilient, and we just use it to our advantage. So then what's good, and it's hard to realize when it's March and you're on the rowing machine and all your friends or other schools rowing on the water, is that when you're racing at the ACC championships or all these races along the way, there's thunderstorms that come up, there's wind that blows, there's bass fishermen that drive by, and we can deal with it better than anybody. And it's been played to our strengths quite often that we can deal with. It doesn't matter what happens because it's not a big barge. No matter what happens at a race, it's not a big 15x3 barge or whatever the heck these things are.
I guess for you, Perie, is there a water out there where you all go take part in that you and the girls get kind of excited about, like, hey, we really did good here last year, this is a great surface to row on?
It depends because there are so many different races, so we kind of, different boats do well on different days. So some girls, I think it's all kind of more personal, like they had a really good race or they remember performing really well here, or a certain thing went well for them, and so then they're like, they get excited. I think for the most part, racing in general, we get very excited as a team, as a whole.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thanks.